Hi everybody, this is Dave. I am getting a lot of questions about my streaming setup with Magic Music Visualizer. Decided I would throw together a little 5-minute video on what I've done with some layers, foreground layers, background layers. Kind of made my own masking utility so I could kind of peek through those layers. So what I'm going to do is give a little tour of the scenes that I have in Magic Music Visualizer, show the control that I use and open stage control using OSC messages to trigger things in Magic Music Visualizer, and then give a little demo of some different scenes and things like that. So this is my main project that I use right now. I've got a main mixer scene, just kind of uses a bunch of other scenes as input. But the main things that I have right now are really 4 layers that contribute to what's going on in my my visuals. So I've got a camera layer. I've got what I called FieldGen. It uses the field generator to with different inputs to show like a field pattern. I've got what I call MaskGen. This is what I'm using for my masking layer that I built. And then ShaderGen, which is just a bunch of random shaders that I use for backgrounds or inputs to other things. So we can take a look at those. They have some interesting features to them. Let's just take a look at CamGen first. This is CameraGen. I've got open sound control set up. And these are the sort of inputs that I use for cameras, or the parameters that I use for cameras. So I've got a slider over here. And that's let me switch through the sources. So I've got a bunch of different cameras. Camera 1, overhead camera. I've got a side camera here. And I have all these different things linked to parameters on this scene. So I got saturation. You see when I move my saturation here, I have my saturation for my saturation module changing here. So let's go ahead and saturate. Actually, let me go turn the light on quick. There, we can actually let the camera see. So we've got saturation. These are all just linked to different variables here. Scale, can zoom in, zoom out. React is one I'll probably do a separate video on. There's a bunch of detail that goes into this one, but basically I want it to react to the beat or set of frequencies. So that's React, and I have a way to fine tune it here. I can turn it off, or I can turn it all the way on. And if you're playing some music, you'll get a nice movement there, but you can fine tune it because depending on the frequencies, it can get a little bit frenetic. I've got a contrast. I've got a brightness, just because I was wanting to make sure I had enough brightness in some of these mixing situations, and then saturation. And then again, over here we've got the mixer, a bunch of live sources, a bunch of cameras. I've also got videos. This is a cat jam scene that I worked on to just give me a couple of the cats jamming different frequencies here. Okay, we'll take a look at FieldGen, which is the second out of the 4 major layers that I have. FieldGen, I've got a bunch of parameters over here that I control in the field. First one is a field object, which object it is. I've just got graphics that input into these, and I can change them. This was one for May 4th Star Wars stream, and it has just different pictures coming in using the JPEG folder module. But it's usually just JPEGs or PNGs or whatever. This is for a raid train that I do, and we throw all kinds of different effects on it. Let's see, we rotate the hue and things like that. So first pick the object, you select the size, select the speed that it's coming at you. You can also rotate it. I have rotate. You can disable the rotation, you can turn it on, you can control the speed, you can make it insane if you want. You control the trails. So these are all just OSC sliders that are changing parameters over here in this area here. Got density. So this is all just parameters on the field module. Is it field? Is that what you call it? An important part is this input selector. For these, I want discrete input selected. So as I come up with new things I want to add a field to, I just add them to the bottom here and map this slider to make sure that it goes up to. Looks like I've got 9 inputs right now. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I like MMV because you can put dynamic stuff in. Like this one right now is spectrum input, and put it in the field. It's just really neat how it all just kind of works. So we can change sizes here, change density, throw some crazy trails on it, and you get all kinds of cool effects here. Crank up the speed, tell it to start rotating. You can probably even throw more effects on this, like some edge detection or something like that, and have some interesting stuff going on. But I like the FieldGen because it's an interesting background sort of thing. The next one I'm going to show you is a ShaderGen. ShaderGen is just a bunch of shaders. Some are more interesting than others, but as you see me scroll through these shaders here, I have them all pretty much set up to be reactive. You can see as I'm talking they're moving more. Makes it a little more interesting. Also what I did in this ShaderGen was I added some, well, the first thing I have is a speed. If I want to not have it moving or moving a little bit according to the music or the sound, then I can adjust that here. I also have a slice, so this is kaleidoscope added on here, and this helps a lot. And I'm in the process of building a rotate. I used to have rotate on my old one. Sometimes it's a little odd rotating because it doesn't always give you the edges that you want, but this is pretty cool. You can just have a normal shader that has some lines on it like this one. And then you can throw it in the kaleidoscope and get some really cool effects out of it. Also for this one, I've got, I believe I'm using multi-mix instead of input selector, so I can actually mix between the adjacent shaders. So like here, this is kind of the spot between two shaders. They're both reactive and they're both kind of doing their thing. So this is just, you know, I added these kind of randomly, but sometimes if you want a little bit of a together effect, then you can have two shaders. And it's interesting, you know, the graphics card is rendering all this stuff. I've got, what do I have? 40 shaders here set up. So they're all busy doing stuff, just waiting to be displayed. So hopefully I have a good graphics card. And the last one I want to show you is MaskGen. Mask is also a bunch of shaders, but I worked on the transparency some here. Basically, I was trying to flatten it out so that I was able to get some, you know, I wanted some masks with some, like sort of a green screen mask or something like that. I didn't quite get that. What I looked for was a lot of black and white masks. and those I can then feed into my main mixer screen, and I can merge a foreground layer with one of the colors, and I can merge a background layer with the black color, and then you end up kind of getting two things out of it. So we page through these. I think I have about 30 of these. Now some of the shaders are color, and they kind of work and have some cool effects. But let's see. So here's a example. I've also got size, so I can kind of zoom in, zoom out. I've got slice for this one too, which is interesting. I've got an alpha channel. I've also got the ability to invert, and this is helpful because sometimes you've got too much or too little going on the screen. You just want to invert. So when you come over to this detail mask gen screen, you can do that. And we go up through some of these. I'll find one that looks good. So yeah, if we do something like this, and then you start slicing, you get some really interesting effects. And then you can invert, and then we'll see in a second when we start mixing these foregrounds and backgrounds together. I have some of the regular color shaders in here too. This is an interesting one. This is one of my favorites here. So this is just a shader I found on one of the websites that MMV was able to pull in. I was able to start using it. And has these random half circles things. So there's a bunch of parameters in here to tell it how many circles to do and the speed and all that stuff. And I didn't tap into all of them. I just made it kind of visually pleasing. But I do have this size available for all of the shaders, so I can do some zooming and whatever. If I want to do slicing, it's interesting. Let this thing slice maybe 4 ways. You get some more even interesting patterns here. And then you've got the alpha on this channel, so you can change and of course invert as well. So here's where the magic happens. We've got all those layers: mixer foreground, mixer background. We've got the mask gen. We feed this in and finally go to a blend, and then that is the final output. So let me adjust it here so we can really see what's going on. So on my main screen here, the left side really controls this main mixer scene, and then I've got one control here for each of the layers, just so I can quickly change camera or whatever. Camera, I can change the main field object. I can change the mask choice or the shader choice easily. If I want to get into details, then I have to click the tab, and then I can change saturation or brightness or whatever, and details for each one of these. So if we go back to the mixer, what I have is a foreground picker. You can pick either fields, you can pick a shader, or the camera as a foreground. And then for the background, I've got fields, shader, or camera. So ideally, foreground and background will both be something different, or else you're just going to see whatever they're set at. And then I've got this mask. I've got the alpha. I can take it all the way away, and it'll just show the background. Or I start bringing it into play here, and I'm just going to leave it all the way up right now so we can really see what's going on. So this mask alpha is all the way up now, or I guess all the way disabled. So what I've got here is in the foreground, we have the camera. So you get the turntables and the mixer image. In the background, we picked shader, and then we picked a mask and have it such that it's fully active here. So you can see things that are colored in, I believe, black in the mask are attached to the background, the shader stuff, and things that are colored in white end up passing through and allowing you to see whatever the stuff is for the foreground camera. Let's take a look at this mixer. So this is really where the magic happens. What I end up doing And this is after a lot of trial and error. You can see I have a mixer.old here. After a lot of trial and error, I have a foreground and a background, and basically invert the mask for the background so that it kind of cuts out and allows the foreground stuff to show through. So if we just go from the top here, so we got the foreground and the generic mask gen, put it into a mask module and click use alpha, and that's one of the inputs to the blend. And then the second input to the blend is everything dealing with the background. So we got mixer background. I have a mask gen that I invert the alpha of, push it into the mask using alpha, and that's the second input to the blend. I had a lot of trial and error to get this to where I wanted it to be. I had a lot of really muddy looking mixes, but this is what ended up finally working for me. So the best masks to put in this are the generic black and white ones. I'd been doing a lot of stuff with Luma Key, Chroma Key, and just really got off track. So this is the thing that really ended up working for me. So the best inputs to this are something in the foreground, something in the background, and then some sort of mask that you give it with a lot of contrast, black and white, and then you can get out stuff like this. If we page through the mask choices again, we've got just some of these crazy shaders. I'd look for geometric ones on the sites. Let's see. I mean, the possibilities are pretty endless here. You can have a lot going on, but sometimes you need less going on. And there's still more stuff I want to add to these, like ShaderGen. I think I need a size there also to kind of blow things up, because like this right now is very busy, a lot going on. I would like to be able to zoom in and have only a small amount of this red, green, blue line thing in the background showing. So yeah, I could put a size on this and kind of have it zoom in. But yeah, if we look at this mask gen, what the mask is this right here. I had sliced it 4 ways. Let's pull the slicing down. This is just some crazy geometric movement stuff going on. You can zoom in or zoom out. You can make all kinds of new stuff by slicing it. All of a sudden it's kaleidoscope, or back it down to 3 or 4, and you've got some cool movement going on. Looks like this one I haven't actually hooked up to the speed yet. That gets kind of tedious setting up all those parameters, but I think that's about it. That's kind of the main stuff. There's some pretty cool combinations you can get here. Let me pick a simpler shader here. This is like a soccer ball that I have as the mask, this weird soccer ball thing. And then take the slicing out, go here and mess with the shading a little bit. Or I want to look at the fields. Let's see. Fields, cut down the trails a little bit. Turn off the rotation because that's a little crazy. Pull down the speed. You can adjust the size a little bit. I've got a new feature I just added was rotate the color. Crank up the saturation, and now the colors change. And then you can change the trails a little bit. If you just want to see the background stuff, change that alpha. Now the foreground is faded out. Now you can just see more about the background layer that you have selected. So that's about it. It's a lot of hours went into it, but MMV is a lot of fun. Some streamers that turned me on to it, they're probably tired of hearing about it because I mess around with it all the time. All right, so I think I'm gonna do some other videos about something like the reactivity, how I build up one of these layers with, especially like maybe this one with all these different controls, and then I'm using open stage control, and I have the higher version of MMV. Use open stage control to control all this stuff. So these are sending messages. Oops. If we look at the editing of this and I select the size, this is a fader. It sends an OSC message to /field/size. So when I go into here to FieldGen, and I should have a scale here. Yeah, I have a scale. This right here. Or do I have another scale? I should have a scale in the input. Rotate, star field, scale, trails. Yeah, I should have that. Yeah, I'm not sure which section that's hooked up to, but you can set up, like the speed. Here's the star field speed /field/speed. Oh, there it is, /field/size /field/density. You just set up your path of what you want the thing to do. I have it set up to be has a default value of 0.5 when it starts up, and it has a min of 0 and a max of 1. So this is the speed one. So when you pull it down, they're just stalled. They're not actually moving right now. And then you move the speed up and they actually start moving again. So they're stopped. Still some trail activity going on, and then you move it up. Now it equals 1, now it equals 0, now it's 0.5. But I'll do a video about controlling these scenes with open stage control, or anything else that sends OSC messages is fine. All right, thanks for checking it out. Where are we at? 20 minutes talking about scenes. All right, thanks for stopping by.